Brookes.
Hello and welcome to Lunchtime at BU. I'm really pleased today. We've got Timo Peach here to talk about some stuff with. Now, Timo is a musician, a designer, a presenter. He's a creative all-rounder. But what he really does, and he spends his time doing, is telling stories about the future. Hello, Timo.
Hello, Matt. Thanks for having me on BU at Lunch.
You're very welcome.
Thank
Now,
you.
tell me, so you tell stories about the future. What does that actually mean?
Well, I'm interested in how we collectively tell stories about the future. And that's because we really need to.
Well, right, so hold on. When you say telling stories about the future, you don't mean necessarily fiction stories, do you?
Not necessarily, but increasingly, hell yes. Hell yes, because there's this kind of weird thing about culture since we've been adults. The last 40 years, I would argue, we got very stuck in a particular culture after generations of progress to the future. And arguably since the sort of Thatcher and Reagan years, lazy shorthand, but about that benchmark, we've sort of got stuck in what I would call the cyberpunk future.
Now hold on a second. So you're framing telling stories here about how we understand the world around us, if that's what I mean, if that's what you mean, right?
Yeah.
So actually this isn't necessarily about just telling stories.
No.
This is telling stories for a reason.
Very definitely. Why? Because that's how we frame the world as animals. Because it's a big, complicated universe we're in, and we've got this instinct to sort of frame it into a narrative. Oh, I am this person in this place for this reason. That makes them good, them bad. This is valuable, that's not. And that's how you get out of bed.
So this is almost like, this is why things like Aesop's fables, right, exist as stories to tell us morally right from wrong.
Yeah, we function that way, don't we?
Hans Christian Andersen, the right from wrong, the good for bad.
Yeah, and there's something about parables when religious teachers do that, telling a story rather than just preaching. It goes in because the brain of the person listening makes the connection, and then it's in.
So this is why you think stories are so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it helps us understand the world around us.
Exactly, and that word storytelling, it's a buzzword, it gets used a lot. It's sort of unavoidable because it is so imperative. The way we frame the view of the world, the way we see the world around us directly informs our choice making, things we spend money on, the things we spend time on. And we don't think that's what's running in our head, but it really, really is.
No, I mean, I don't walk through life all day feeling like the protagonist of my own story.
Do you not? Well, you seem quite central character to me.
But, okay, consciously, I don't consciously stroll down the road, the protagonist in my, but I am the protagonist in my own story.
You are.
And it's a complicated story. There are things happening all around me all at once, and to make them make sense to other people, we frame it as a narrative.
You just sort of do it. It's like there's subconscious software running underneath that helps you go, well, you're one of those. And you see it come out. People get triggered by single issues because something's going on there in their psychology that triggers the world they think it is. Oh, you're a right-wing one of those, you're a left-wing one of those. That's how outrage clickbait works.
And very little of the world is that binary, right?
Yes, nothing.
Nothing
actually
is that binary.
No, surely not, apart from all the voters. But no, the real world isn't. And I think that disconnect between the binary on-off, be all in on one thing.
That grey-scale bit in the middle.
That's how real life works. That's how multi-sensory animals like us work, but we're made to do everything only through our eyes, about one issue at a time, and I think that disconnect is what feeds an awful lot of our anxieties.
So what led you to this journey that you're on, to help to encourage more people to tell stories?
Because as a lifelong creative, I've got that instinct in me. I went to art school, same as you did. The one next door, and I didn't kind of get what they were trying to teach me then, but as I got older and wanted to learn about the world, I fell into magazine publishing, paid the bills by doing that, and learning how to tell stories for a living in an unglamorous way. So I formed my own company, like a marketing company, designer and writer. So I've seen more of the real world than it looks like I do. But I've also been a music artist the whole time. And as I got older and into a particular phase of my life, I started a music project in which I was, in a carefree way, just going to explore the world through science fiction. My music's very playful. This seemed like a really obvious thing for Momo Tempo to do. But as I started to form the idea of writing an album around celebration of sci-fi, one question kept bubbling up until I noticed it very consciously, and that was, surrounded by all these what-if futures that science fiction presents, my brain went, which future's the most likely? And it was like I just sort of woke up and looked around and went, oh my word, the planet's on fire. Why did I not get the memo?
Oh, you only just noticed.
I'd only just noticed. This is about 9 years ago. But I did feel like I thought I was paying attention the whole way. So for me, art actually introduced me to this concept. I went looking for stuff. And this
is where Unsee the Future. So you did a podcast, right?
I did, and that fell out of this because my first instinct was, okay, this LP is trying to say more than I thought it was. Let's codify it. I put my designer and writer's head together, made a physical book, like a brand Bible of a whole experience around the music. Of course I did. And then put all that effort into a thing that's beautiful on a shelf at home. And then I just took that thing around and wanged it on a few people's desks and said, I want to make that, am I mad? They all went, no, but how are you going to do it? And I said, I was rather hoping you'd have some answers. And in the middle of that conversation, one person said to me, you're speaking a bit like the Sustainable Development Goals.
Aha.
And I went, what are they?
What are they?
He said, go away and find out, and you'll have a lingua franca or some shared references for more people.
So now, from my naive understanding of the Sustainable Development Goals, and hopefully you're going to either say I'm right, wrong, or you're just going to educate me. This is the United Nations have identified 7 Sustainable Development Goals that they're trying to get countries of the world to get behind in an effort to make our futures more sustainable.
It's meant to be a shared reference of the problems. And it grew out of, I think they were called the Millennium Goals. It was an initiative developed in the 90s. Okay. And the Millennium came and went, and the general principle I get is that they said, look, there's more mileage in this. So they set the date of 2030 and really dug into codifying what the problems are on Earth at the moment that we've got to crack, and we've got to do it by then for various metrics.
2030 is not that long away.
It's really freaking close now, yes.
And so there's 17 of these. Give us an example of what 1 or 2 of them are.
So number 1, well, they just give them a number, give them a code. It's a very nicely designed thing. Poverty, life below water, life on land, gender equality. They've broken down what they think are cultural issues.
The cultural issues of the time of our society, in terms of, we need to end poverty. Yeah. Right? That actually, this is where these are questions framed as statements.
Yes, I get it.
The distance between the have and the have-nots is too far.
Yes, and growing.
And actually we should be trying to shrink that.
Yeah.
It's that. Right.
They've worked into them over the years and got more details, and actually each one of those neatly colour-coded, numbered aims has loads of implications beneath it.
But so there's 17 of these, and this is where I struggle with them. They're not as simple as just there's 17 issues. If we solved 17 issues, we'd be all right. Yeah. These are all interconnected.
Exactly that. And my revelation was that when I looked at it as a creative, as an outsider, as somebody who isn't a policy wonk, hasn't worked in the charity sector or the third sector, do they make sense to me as an outsider? And they did, but I had 2 key revelations that's now informed kind of everything I do. It's my earned truth, man. It is that, firstly, they're not just all connected. I see them as different symptoms of the same single problem.
Which is?
Our economics. And the economics is a story we've told ourselves about how to value everything. And we think it's just the way the world works, isn't it? I work like this and I'm worth this. If it's rarer, then it's worth more. Yeah. But arguably what that helps us realise is that it's artificial, that we've designed it.
It is artificial, isn't it?
It's
because
really imposed.
This is what happened to the Aztecs and the Spaniards, right? That the Aztecs, well, this is just a funny, malleable, shiny metal, and we've got loads of it. Yeah. And the Spaniards came along and went, well, we've hardly got any of it,
Yeah.
and we're going to take it all because we think it has value.
It's great. In return, have smallpox.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Transactional, you see. But
there's a value exchange.
There's a value exchange of some sort. Also, we will plough through and terraform the land and kill a lot of you. But it'll all be over once we figure we own everything. But
it was that thing. It was the perception of value is a made-up construct.
It is. And so it comes back to something you said near the beginning about walking through life as the protagonist.
Yeah.
So individualism, you could call that.
Yes.
The fundamental world shift between what we now refer to as in an indigenous worldview and ours is their sense of value and their sense of interconnection meant that, well, I need us to win for me to win.
Yes.
And that fundamental shift is what's trying to emerge now as we realise, oh, maybe they're onto something. If we see ourselves as part of nature, not above it like Victorian scientists, then we can reframe the story we think we're in to have a whole different kind of meaning. Slight problem is, absolutely everything we built in the world system is built around against that.
It's built around this capitalist. We live in a Western society. Is this capitalist thing? Where
So there's nothing what that made me see, the revelation was, well, then there's a goal missing. If every single problem that I outlined by this shared reference is directly a product of culture, ways of seeing the world, then there's nothing we need more than art. Because art is the business of creating new ways of seeing.
Art is about changing perceptions, and looking at things in a different way.
Exactly.
And I suppose as well, to come back then to your role of telling stories about the future, that is how we understand
it is.
The interconnectedness of these issues, that they don't all exist on their own, in isolation.
They don't.
They all impact each other. But for me, as a simple man, if I think of that problem as that size, I'm just going to shut down.
You are just going to shut down.
Because I can't cope with it.
No, you can't.
That's a huge thing. How can I do where does my tiny little effort matter in the great scheme of things?
I've come to this view of that actually ties with my personal values. I have once done some work on myself and worked out what my personal values were. And going through this lovely process, I discovered that my sort of 3 key words are consciousness, encouragement, and theatre. That's how I live and function naturally. But when you think about those words, consciousness is like the big picture context. I'm a sense maker. I want to know how things fit together.
And that's about understanding the world around.
The big picture.
Being aware.
Being aware of everything. Encouragement is the other end of the scale. It's the hand on the shoulder. It's the one-to-one. It's the intimate understanding and listening. Theatre, the arts, storytelling, is the shuttle in between. And so as somebody who embodies theatrical storytelling in my background, understanding how design works in my training, and all the kind of performative communication with humans I've done through music, I can be that kind of almost like a jester to work between those 2 scales and take people with me.
So you're the guy that's going to help us make sense of the world around us.
I'm somebody with those sorts of skills. Because partly it's just having the jurisdiction as an artist to go where the hell you like and not stick to the tram lines. And that's the only way we're going to save the world. Because everything's in these boxes.
And this comes back to this idea of a binary world.
Yeah.
Right? That we don't live in.
That we don't actually live in.
We don't actually live in a binary world, but as people, that's how the society or the system is trying to train us.
Yeah.
And the thing that makes artists, they push against any kind of system.
Yeah.
Because intrinsically within an artist there is another way to see the world.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the job then that you're trying to do.
It is, but because I've done work with sensible businesses, I can speak both languages and be a little bit of a translator. So I find when I go in, I can embody a spirit. It's almost like being a comedian, even though I have no idea how to write jokes. You go in and people go, oh, I'm on edge, but in a way that I think I can trust. And that means I can then speak some challenging things to my clients. I was with one set of client, I put it in a piece recently, beginning of the year. I stood on stage in front of them all. They dragged me to Tenerife to do this leadership thing.
Oh, must have been awful.
And I said, well, I predicted to all my friends I will see a beige basement for 5 days, and that is pretty much all I saw. But I stood on the stage at the beginning of the second morning and just laughed at them. I stood there and You guys, you are bad people. And I could hear a pin drop, and then my head went, I bullet timed it in my head and went, you better have this going somewhere, Peach. In this moment, everything hangs on what you say in the next second. And I just said, no matter what you do, you can't change, you can't be a good person. Mathematically, you are too implicated with the way the world is. So you might think there's a perfect way to be green, be sustainable, you'll never do it. So how about we all reject the idea of shame and complicity, and we start with where we are and plug in our passion.
And that's such a bold statement to make to a company.
It is, and they were all
because
okay.
Well, but you picked up on that thing. The companies don't exist. They are a structure that's been invented to enable the legal exchange of value.
Yes.
That's all they are.
They're not really a thing.
But we've given them so much more credence than that. We've given them personalities.
Yeah.
We've given them brands. They have a reputation. You know, we've given these non-existing things.
These non-existing things.
Some non-intangible.
Isn't that so us right now, though? Because we've got, I call it the robot world, because we are longing for some hyper-objective entity to sort out all our problems.
But this is about helping us make sense of the world around us. That's why we create these structures.
It is, but they've now, we can...
But you're saying they've gone too far.
They've gone too far. Because real life's about balance, and it's the sort of fuzzy logic between a bit of this and a bit of that. And the binary world makes us want to go all the way up one end, and that's when things sink. And what companies, what lots of robot thinking doesn't want is a kind of nuance. It doesn't want subtlety. It doesn't want to take time to sit with nature and listen to it like permaculture wants us to. That's where the wisdom is, but we don't think that way at all. And what I'd say is it's habit. We've just been trained into not thinking that way.
So we just need to tell better stories so we can understand the world around us.
Yeah, and you know, it's very basic.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you right there because that was my excellent end point.
Oh.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Damn! I was going to make a big point. It's a pull out now. It's a pull out. Thanks. That's great. It's the end now. I see that.
Yes.
Thanks, man.